The most dangerous truth Jung discovered is this. When the empath absorbs the darkness of the narcissist, they do not merely carry another's pain, they become something entirely different. Not the self they once recognized. Not the mirror of light they thought they were, but a figure shaped in the storm basement of the unconscious. The empath believes they are saving, healing, enduring. In reality, they are being reforged in the alchemy of another's shadow. And unless they awaken, they will live as a ghost of someone else's wound. This is the secret most never want revealed. But you will hear it now. Imagine sitting in Jung's study in Zurich in the early 1932. The heavy oak desk, the rows of books on alchemy and mythology, the scent of pipe smoke and rain against the window. A patient sits before him, a woman with trembling hands, her eyes hollow yet burning. She speaks in a low tone, almost ashamed of her words. When he looks at me, I feel like my soul vanishes. I cannot stop him, and yet I cannot leave. Jung listens. He writes in his journal that evening, "This is not merely a marriage of bodies or of personalities. This is an infection of psyches. She has inhaled the vapors of his unconscious. She bleeds not her own blood, but his. There, her name, for our story, is Clara. Clara was once radiant, sensitive, quick to smile at strangers. Friends described her as one who could feel the mood of a room before stepping into it. She thought of her empathy as a blessing. But then she met Adrian, whose charm glistened like oil on water. He was magnetic, articulate, yet beneath his compliments lingered a coldness that unsettled her. Still, she was drawn. Empaths often are, to them. The narcissist appears not as a predator but as a puzzle, a broken child who must be loved into wholeness. And so Clara opened herself wide, believing her warmth could heal what she sensed was wounded in Adrian. At first, she felt powerful, his reliance on her, his confessions whispered late at night, his storms calmed by her voice. All this convinced her she was essential, perhaps even chosen. But slowly, something shifted. His gaze turned sharper, his words more demanding, his silences heavier. When he belittled her, she excused it as pain speaking. When he withdrew, she pursued him with greater tenderness. And with every cycle, she absorbed his darkness like a sponge, drinking poison, until one day, looking in the mirror, Clara realized she could not remember the sound of her own laughter. She had become the echo of his despair, the vessel of his rage, the mask of his shadow. Jung would describe this as psychic possession. The empath becomes colonized by the unintegrated shadow of the narcissist. What Adrian denied in himself, his shame, his fear of abandonment, his buried self-loathing, Clara carried in her body, in her nervous system, in her dreams. She dreamed of drowning in black rivers, of screaming children locked in basements, of mirrors that reflected not her face but his. The unconscious had been invaded, and the empath's gift of porousness, once a light, became a curse. Because what you absorb, you eventually become. To understand this transformation, we must speak of the shadow. Jung called the shadow the thing a person has no wish to be. It is everything repressed, denied, cast into the basement of the psyche. For the narcissist, the shadow is intolerable. To face it would shatter their fragile persona. So they project it outward, forcing others to hold it. The empath, attuned and open, becomes the chosen container. You think you are helping, but in truth, you are holding what was never yours. The darkness seeps into your cells, and slowly, you are reshaped. What makes this so perilous is the invisibility of the process. It does not happen in a single dramatic moment. It is gradual, like water eroding stone. One day you notice you apologize for everything. Another day you catch yourself defending their cruelty. Later, you no longer dream your own dreams, you dream theirs. By the time you realize, the transformation is nearly complete. You are no longer only yourself, you are the ghost carrier of another's unconscious. And this, Jungian, is the most dangerous kind of possession, not by demons of myth, but by the denied fragments of another human soul. Clara's case reveals a chilling pattern. She began with empathy, but ended with emptiness. Jung once wrote that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But in the empath-narcissist bond, the transformation is not equal. One extracts, the other dissolves. The narcissist becomes stronger, more inflated, feeding on the life force of the empath. The empath becomes weaker, haunted, living in shadows that are not their own. Who do they become after such absorption? They become a fractured hybrid, a person wearing the cloak of someone else's darkness. A mirror turned black. Yet Jung also believed in individuation, the sacred process of becoming whole. He saw, even in Clara's despair, a seed of awakening. For the empath who absorbs the narcissist's shadow can, if they survive, become something extraordinary. One who has touched the depths of darkness and still chosen light. But to reach that transformation requires fire, rupture, courage. It requires tearing off the borrowed mask and facing both their own shadow and the one they've carried. You, reading this now, may feel the sting of recognition. Perhaps you know what it is to feel drained after every conversation with someone who claims to love you. Perhaps you've dreamed dreams that feel foreign, as if your psyche has been invaded. Perhaps you've apologized. So often you no longer know what you truly believe. These are not random symptoms. They are the fingerprints of shadow possession. And Jung would say, ignore them at your peril, because the more you deny what is happening, the deeper the possession roots itself, until your very identity is rewritten. Clara's nights became the true battlefield. She would wake drenched in sweat, hearing voices in dreams that did not sound like her own. Jung noted in his records that patients under psychic possession often carried dreamscapes that mirrored not their own unconscious, but the alien fragments of another's. Clara's journals described corridors where she wandered endlessly, searching for a door. Behind her, always, the echo of Adrian's footsteps. When she turned, his face dissolved into shadow. This is what happens when projection is ingested rather than deflected. The empath's dream life is colonized. It is no longer symbolic guidance from within. It is invasion from without. Jung compared this to ancient myths of demonic possession, not because he believed literal demons were at work, but because the psyche, when overtaken by another's shadow, behaves as if something non-human has entered. Voices command. Compulsions arise. Guilt swells without source. Clara confessed to Jung, I feel guilty when he is angry, even when I've done nothing. I feel unworthy when he withdraws, as if I've committed a crime. But I don't know what crime. This is the empath's curse. They metabolize another's shame until it feels like their own. They live, punished for sins never committed. Jung, ever the alchemist of symbols, wrote that the empath is like the grail, an open vessel. But the grail is holy only when filled with divine wine. When filled with poison, it becomes a chalice of death. Adrian poured his unprocessed shadow, his rage at his father, his terror of inadequacy, his lust for domination into Clara's grail. And because she believed love meant carrying another's wounds, she drank. Over time, her bloodstream of psyche ran black. Who does the empath become after such absorption? They become a distorted saint, a martyr, not of God, but of another's pathology. Their empathy mutates into masochism, their compassion into chains. To understand this, we must return to Jung's concept of projection. Projection is the mind's way of avoiding its own darkness. The narcissist, unable to face their own flaws, casts them outward. They accuse others of what they secretly are. They manipulate so that others carry their denied emotions. For most, projection bounces harmlessly if the target refuses it. But empaths, with their permeable boundaries, catch these projections like a net. Catches falling debris. They do not deflect, they absorb. This absorption is mistaken for virtue. "I will carry this for you," the empath whispers unconsciously. Yet in doing so, they no longer know where I ends and you begins. Clara's transformation unfolded in stages so subtle, she did not notice until it was nearly irreversible. First, she excused his cruelty. Then, she normalized his absence. Next, she silenced her instincts, convincing herself her gut was paranoia. Eventually, she mirrored his moods, so completely she could no longer distinguish them from her own. When Adrian raged, Clara trembled not in fear, but in resonance, as if his emotion was hers. This is the empath's undoing. They confuse absorption with intimacy. They believe becoming one with the other is the ultimate act of love. But Jung would caution, what you fuse with, you also lose yourself to. And if that fusion is with shadow, you descend. Religion has long carried echoes of this dynamic. Consider the scapegoat ritual of ancient Israel, where the sins of the community were placed onto a goat, driven into the wilderness to die. The empath becomes the living scapegoat for the narcissist. They carry the unconfessed sins, the secret shame, the rage denied. Unlike the goat, they are not released. They remain bound to the altar of relationship, crucified daily by unseen nails. Clara was no different. She carried Adrian's unspoken terror of abandonment, his loathing of weakness, his suppressed despair. She bore them quietly, believing it her sacred duty. But instead of redemption, she found only erosion. The empath who becomes the scapegoat becomes, over time, a ghost. Jung's clinical lens saw these cases not as isolated tragedies, but as archetypal dramas. He believed each carried universal symbols. The empath is Persephone, abducted into Hades. The narcissist is the lord of the underworld, demanding tribute. The descent into the shadow realm is both destructive and initiatory. For some, it ends in death of self. For others, if they awaken, it births transformation. Clara, though breaking, still had a choice, to awaken to the possession or remain its prisoner. Jung pressed her with words sharp as scalpels. The shadow you carry is not yours. You must decide if you will remain crucified to another's fate. There, you, too, must hear this warning. If you recognize yourself in Clara, know that the voice whispering, "You must endure," is not your higher self. It is the implanted echo of another's fear. If you feel guilty for things you cannot name, exhausted without cause, heavy with despair that is foreign, know this: you are carrying cargo that was never yours. The narcissist thrives by making you believe their shadow is your truth. Once you believe it, you stop resisting, and once you stop resisting, you become their shadow's host. But let us not forget Jung's belief in individuation. Even possession can become portal. For the empath who wakes, the descent into shadow becomes a baptism in fire. They emerge no longer naive, no longer porous without discernment. They learn boundaries not as walls, but as sacred thresholds. They learn that true compassion does not mean carrying another's darkness. It means holding it to the light without letting it devour you. This is the paradox. The empath who survives the narcissist's darkness becomes stronger than either could imagine. They are no longer merely sensitive, they are seers. Ones who have walked through Hades and returned. Clara, in later sessions, began to notice subtle shifts. She described dreams where she fought back, pushing Adrian's shadow out of her body. She began journaling what felt truly hers versus what felt foreign. She whispered to herself before sleep, "This guilt is not mine. This rage is not mine." Jung called this the beginning of psychic differentiation, the reclaiming of one's own soul from another's possession. It was not easy. Each step felt like betrayal, but Jung insisted to betray the narcissist is, in truth, to rescue the self. For loyalty to shadow is death, loyalty to self is resurrection. And so we arrive at the truth few want spoken. The empath who absorbs the narcissist's darkness becomes either a living sacrifice or a reborn seer. There is no middle path. You cannot carry another's unconscious indefinitely without losing yourself. Either you awaken and return the projection, or you dissolve into the ghost they require. Jung would thunder from his chair if he saw you today. Choose, because indecision is itself a choice to remain possessed. There is a moment, always, when the empath feels the shift. It is subtle, like a drop of ink in clear water. But that single drop stains everything. Jung warned that the psyche always leaves clues. If you pay attention, you can see the signs before the transformation devours you. If you ignore them, you will awaken one day and not recognize the person staring back in the mirror. These are the stages of possession, the fingerprints of the shadow's invasion. Hear them as warnings, for they may already be whispering inside you. Sign 1. The vanishing of laughter. At first, you do not notice. You still smile. You still nod. You still play the role of happy. But true laughter, the spontaneous eruption of joy, vanishes. Jung wrote that the loss of authentic affect is a symptom of psychic displacement. It means your inner child has been silenced, replaced by the echo of another's heaviness. Clara remembered realizing one day she had not laughed in months. Her friends noticed before she did. They said her eyes looked tired, her smile mechanical. This is always the first clue. The empath begins to live in borrowed weather, clouds covering their own sun. Sign 2. Guilt without crime. One of the most chilling hallmarks of shadow possession is guilt that arrives without cause. You feel guilty when they are upset, guilty when they are silent, guilty even in their absence. The narcissist's unowned shame seeps into your bloodstream. Jung described this as the invasion of moral affect. Clara apologized, constantly apologized for speaking, for being late, for existing. She felt she was perpetually on trial, though no crime had been named. If you feel guilty simply for breathing in someone's presence, know this: you are already carrying what is not yours. Sign 3. Dreams that no longer belong to you. The unconscious speaks in symbols, but when you are possessed, those symbols grow foreign. You dream of faces that dissolve into someone else's, of voices commanding you to obey, of basements where shadows multiply. Jung noted that borrowed dreams are signs of projection lodged deep in the unconscious. Clara dreamed of Adrian's childhood home. Though she had never seen it, she dreamed his fears, his rage, his unspoken terrors. This is no coincidence. When your dreams become foreign films you never auditioned for, you are no longer dreaming your own soul. You are dreaming theirs. Sign 4. The erosion of instinct. An empath's greatest gift is intuition, the gut sense that discerns truth beneath masks. But under possession, that instinct withers. You begin to doubt your own perception. You explain away red flags. You convince yourself your gut is paranoia. Clara once told Jung, "When I feel danger, I immediately scold myself for being dramatic." This is how the darkness cements itself, by turning your intuition against you. Once your inner compass is broken, you wander in someone else's labyrinth. And the deeper you go, the less you believe there is even a way out. Sign 5. Silence of the self. The empath begins speaking less, sharing less, existing less. Words catch in the throat. Opinions feel dangerous. Desires feel selfish. Clara once loved to sing at gatherings, her voice bright as spring air. But after Adrian's constant belittling, she stopped. The silence of the self is the silence of the soul. Jung described it as the withdrawal of libido, the life force receding, trapped under shadow. If you find yourself mute where you once sang, hiding where you once danced, know this: your self has been gagged, and another's shadow is speaking louder than your truth. Sign 6. The mirror turned black. Perhaps the most terrifying stage is when you no longer recognize your reflection. You look in the mirror and see eyes that feel foreign, shoulders hunched with weight you cannot name. Clara confessed. Sometimes I feel like I am him. I hear his words in my head when I speak. This is the moment of full possession. The empath has become host. The shadow has found a home. Jung compared it to an eclipse. The sun of the self is covered by the moon of another's unconscious. The light is still there, but hidden. And if the eclipse lingers too long, the world grows cold. Sign 7. The addiction to pain. The final sign is paradoxical. The empath, though drained and broken, begins to crave the very cycle that destroys them. They mistake the turbulence for passion, the chaos for love, the abuse for necessity. Clara told Jung, "When he is cruel, I feel more alive than when he is kind. His silence hurts, but his words are fire, and I can't stop burning." This is the most insidious trap. The empath internalizes the darkness as part of their identity. They confuse possession with intimacy, pain with connection. Jung wrote, "What we do not make conscious appears in our life as fate. Until you expose it, you will repeat it endlessly, addicted to your own undoing." These 7 signs are not random. They form a progression, a spiral. Each deepens the possession until the empath is no longer separate from the narcissist's shadow. It begins with laughter lost and ends with pain mistaken for love. It begins with subtle guilt and ends with identity collapse. This is the dark alchemy of shadow absorption. And if you see yourself in even one of these signs, know that the process has already begun. Jung would tell you, act now, before the spiral tightens and your soul forgets its original form. But there is another truth. The spiral can be reversed. Recognition is the first cut in the chains. Awareness is the spark that melts the ice. If you can name the signs, you can interrupt the possession. If you can say aloud, "This guilt is not mine," you begin to sever the cord. Jung insisted that shadow work was not about avoiding darkness, but about distinguishing whose darkness you carry, and only then can you choose to lay it down. The spiral of possession is not the end of the story. Jung never left his patients in the abyss without a rope. He believed the psyche, no matter how darkened, carries within it the seeds of transformation. For the empath who has absorbed the narcissist's shadow, liberation is not easy, it is war. Yet it is possible. The key is to reclaim what was lost, to return what was never yours, and to ignite the fire of individuation. I will give you the protocol, step by step, as if Jung himself whispered it in your ear. Do not read these lightly. Each is both sword and shield. Step 1. Name the foreigner within. The first act of liberation is recognition. You must identify what is not yours. Jung taught that the unconscious thrives on anonymity. What remains unnamed rules you. Clara began writing lists. This despair belongs to Adrian. This rage belongs to Adrian. This silence belongs to Adrian. She did not deny that she felt them. She acknowledged they lived inside her, but she refused to call them hers. You must do the same. Write it. Speak it aloud. Say, "This is not my shadow." The moment you name the foreigner, it weakens. The parasite hates the light of language. Step 2. Rebuild the sacred boundary. Empaths are born with open gates. Their sensitivity is their gift. But when possessed, those gates become breaches. Jung insisted on boundaries as psychic hygiene. Clara practiced small rituals, closing her eyes, envisioning a circle of fire around her body, declaring aloud, "What is yours stays with you. What is mine remains with me." This is no childish game, it is psychic fencing. Without boundaries, the empath bleeds endlessly. With boundaries, they become sovereign. Imagine drawing a line in the sand of your soul. Do not let another step across. Even love must respect the threshold. Step 3. Confront your own shadow. Here lies the paradox. While much of the darkness you carry is not yours, some is. The empath's openness is often rooted in their own unresolved wounds. The fear of rejection, the hunger to be needed, the terror of abandonment. Jung warned that if you do not confront your own shadow, you will forever magnetize the shadows of others. Clara wept when she realized she clung to Adrian because he mirrored her childhood, wounded her father's coldness, her mother's absence. The narcissist was not random, he was archetype. To free yourself, you must stare into your own abyss. Ask, what hunger made me open the door? Without this reckoning, the pattern will repeat. Step 4. Return the projection. Possession ends when the shadow is given back. Jung described this as returning the parcel to its sender. Clara practiced a fierce visualization. When Adrian raged, she imagined handing his anger back. Like a heavy coat she refused to wear. She whispered in her mind, "This belongs to you." The empath must learn this phrase as holy scripture. Say it daily. Write it in your blood if you must. This belongs to you. Every time guilt rises without cause, return it. Every time shame surges foreign, return it. The narcissist cannot be healed by you. Their shadow is theirs alone. Your task is to carry only your own. Step 5. Rekindle your instinct. Intuition is the compass stolen during possession. You must reclaim it. Jung often instructed patients to practice active imagination dialogues with the unconscious. Clara closed her eyes and asked her inner child, "What do you feel?" She wrote the answers without judgment. Slowly, her good voice returned. You must practice listening again. Begin small. What food feels right today? What color draws you? What silence feels safe? Do not dismiss these whispers. They are the compass shards reassembling. When the gut speaks again, obey. Trust, rebuilt instinct, more than borrowed logic. It will lead you out of the labyrinth. Step 6. Transmute suffering into vision. The empath who survives possession carries a treasure. Jung wrote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." Your descent was not meaningless, it was initiation. Clara, once broken, later became a healer. She knew how to recognize shadow in others because she had carried it. She knew the scent of possession, the tremor of projection. She no longer mistook pain for love. She became a seer, not despite the darkness, but because of it. You, too, can transmute. Your suffering can become wisdom. Your empathy, once weaponized against you, can become discernment, sharper than steel. But only if you choose transformation over repetition. Do you see the pattern? Each step is both an exorcism and a rebirth. You name what is not yours. You build boundaries. You confront your wounds. You return projections. You rekindle instinct. You transmute pain. This is not theory, it is ritual. If you practice these steps, the shadow will retreat. If you ignore them, it will remain your master. Clara's story did not end in despair. Through this protocol, she slowly reclaimed herself. She laughed again, softly at first, then fully. She stopped apologizing for silence that was not hers. Her dreams shifted no longer. basements of screaming children, but fields of light where she walked alone and unafraid. Jung wrote in his final notes, "The possession lifted. She discovered her own soul. This is the promise awaiting you if you dare to act." The empath who absorbs the narcissist's darkness can either become its tomb or its witness. The choice is yours, but I will warn you. Liberation will feel like betrayal. The narcissist will accuse you of cruelty, of abandonment, of selfishness. They will say, "You owe me." They will rage at the boundary, lash out at the returned projection. Do not bend. Betrayal of shadow is fidelity to self. Jung thundered, "The one who looks outside dreams. The one who looks inside awakens." You must awaken, even if it costs the relationship, even if it costs the illusion, even if it costs the identity you once clung to. Better to lose the bond than to lose your soul. So hear me, if you are already in the spiral, take these steps now. Tonight, not tomorrow. Name what is not yours. Draw the boundary. Confront your wound. Return the projection. Listen to your gut. Transmute your suffering. Do not wait for permission. No one will save you. The only one who can end the possession is you. The story of Clara did not end in the shadows. What began as possession became initiation. And this is the secret Jung always guarded. The empath who survives the narcissist's darkness is not the same person who entered. They are transformed, reforged, made into something rare. Not the naive giver they once were, but a figure of fire, one who has seen the abyss and learned to name it. This is who the empath becomes after absorbing the narcissist's darkness if they rise. Imagine Clara now. Years after her sessions, she walks differently. Her shoulders no longer slump under invisible weight. Her eyes, once hollow, now shine with a kind of terrifying clarity. Friends say she seems older, not in age, but in wisdom. She laughs again, but her laughter is different, edged with strength. She no longer apologizes for existing. When someone tries to manipulate her, she sees it instantly, as if the trick is written in bold letters across their face. She is no longer prey, she has become seer. This transformation is not metaphor. Jung described individuation as a sacred rebirth. When the shadow is confronted, when projections are returned, when suffering is transmuted, the psyche undergoes metamorphosis. The empath, once a sponge for others' wounds, becomes a mirror of truth. They no longer absorb unconsciously, they discern consciously. They do not confuse pain with love. They recognize shadow when it enters the room, and most of all, they know their own soul. Its edges, its voice, its sacred fire. Clara told Jung in her final sessions, "I used to think my gift was feeling what others felt. Now I know my gift is seeing what others cannot bear to see." That is the difference. Before, empathy was a wound, porous, unprotected, bleeding. After, empathy became vision. She could stand with others in their darkness without becoming it. She could name shadows without carrying them. She had become what Jung called individuated, a self not swallowed by others. But sovereign, this is the fate awaiting you, if you dare to walk the path. Yes, you absorbed darkness. Yes, you carried shame, guilt, rage that were never yours. Yes, you became a scapegoat, a mirror turned black. But if you awaken, that very descent becomes your power. You will never again be fooled by false light. You will never again confuse cruelty for passion. You will never again lose yourself in another's storm. You will carry scars. Yes, but scars are proof of healing. They are the map of your survival. They are your initiation marks into a deeper truth. The empath who awakens becomes unrecognizable to the narcissist. Once their perfect host, now their greatest threat. Because nothing terrifies the narcissist more than someone who sees through them. Your eyes, once clouded, become clear. Your silence, once submission, becomes sovereignty. Your laughter, once lost, becomes a war drum of life. You are no longer their mirror. You are your own flame. Jung would say, you have pulled the projection back. You have become whole. This is the transformation. But let me be clear. Transformation is not gentle. It feels like death. Because in a way, it is. The self you thought you were, the overgiver, the silent sufferer, the eternal scapegoat, must die. That version of you cannot survive liberation. Clara grieved this death. She cried for the years she lost, the self she abandoned, the illusion she carried. But when the grief burned itself out, she felt lighter, as if a mask had been torn away, and beneath it, her true face at last. You, too, will mourn. But mourning is the passage to resurrection. The empath who mourns their old self makes space for the new. Do you feel it? Even as you read these words, perhaps something stirs. Perhaps you recognize the signs, the spiral, the possession. Perhaps you hear your own laughter crying to return, your own instincts begging to be heard. That stirring is the beginning. That is your soul remembering itself. Do not silence it. Do not tell it to wait. Every moment you delay, the shadow roots deeper. Every moment you act, the shadow weakens. Transformation is not tomorrow, it is now. And when you rise, when you finally reclaim yourself, you will see the world differently. What once felt like chaos will reveal its patterns. What once felt like betrayal will reveal its lesson. What once felt like punishment will reveal its purpose. You will no longer ask, why did this happen to me? You will declare, this forged me. The empath who has carried the narcissist's darkness and lived becomes dangerous in the most sacred sense. Dangerous to illusions, dangerous to lies, dangerous to shadows. Because they see everything, so I ask you now, who will you become? Will you remain the ghost of another's shadow? Or will you rise as the seer of your own soul? The choice is not abstract. It is urgent. It is the difference between living as someone else's echo or living as your own flame. Jung left us no illusions. He knew the cost. But he also knew the reward. And now you know too. The time for ignorance has ended. If these words burn in you, let them become your vow. Declare your awakening. Write it into the fabric of reality. In the comments, type, I see everything. Do not hesitate. Do not delay. Let it be your first act of reclamation. And when you write it, I feel the chain crack. Feel the mask fall. Feel the shadow return to where it belongs. And then, subscribe. Stay with this journey. Because what I have revealed is only the beginning. There are deeper truths still hidden. Secrets Jung never dared to publish. Warnings the world is not ready for. But you are ready. And if you follow, you will hear them. Until then, remember, you are not the shadow you carried. You are not the ghost they made you. You are the seer reborn from possession. You are the fire that no eclipse can hide. See you in the next dimension.